Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to talk about what may well be the most interesting Latin jazz rock fusion album of all time. Certainly one that helped put the genre on the map. Boy, my head is strategically placed. The album is, of course, Abraxas by the great Santana. Now, Latin music is not a monolith. There are many different kinds. Cuban music is very different than Mexican music, which is very different than Tejano music, and there's so many other forms of broadly Latin music. Of course, as we get into South America, you've got things like bossa nova, you've got samba, you've got the pan flute music of the Andes, all of which can sometimes be lumped into this huge category. We talk about European classical music with the same idiocy because French music, German music, Italian music, Norwegian classical music, all very different. Although there are some unifying features to be sure, just as there are in Latin music. But traditionally, because the pop music world was invented in the United States in the late 19th century, we tend to think of Latin music as the kind, when we say it colloquially, as the stuff that is closest geographically and culturally to the US. So this can mean either Cuban or Mexican. And in the case of Carlos Santana, we're talking about Mexican music, traditional Mexican folk music with jazz, various kinds of Latin jazz, which of course there is a Cuban influence even in some of the Mexican jazz. When you combine that with rock music, prog rock even, you get something really interesting. And that's what the music of Carlos Santana has tended to be over a long and varied career. Now, Abraxas wasn't his first album, but in many ways it was his second. But it was really the album that I think put this genre on the map. It made the Latin sound something that became irresistible to non-Latino audiences. And it did so by perfectly fusing rock, traditional jazz, progressive rock, jazz fusion, and various Mexican and other Latin influences across really well-written songs. The album's become so popular that you can sort of measure this. When an album is well recorded, which it is, and it sustains its popularity, audiophile companies will do many pressings of it, and there is no exception here. CBS Master Sound did a version of it, I think two, one on LP in the 80s, one on CD in the 90s. MoFi, Mobile Fidelity, did a gold CD version in the 90s. Then they did a another CD version in sort of the mid 2000s, then a Super Audio CD with a different mastering. Then they have their One Step, which is some people say the best audiophile record ever. And so this again, people like to listen to this and they like to hear it in detail because there is so much going on in the music and not many overdubs. This was a band playing live with many musicians doing many interesting things across such memorable songs. Even the jams and the solos are memorable. So this may well be the most important, some would say the best example of rock music, jazz music, Latin music, and Mexican music specifically coming all together. And luckily, my head is still strategically placed for those of you who like censorship. I certainly don't, but hey, and now I don't have any hair. Maybe now I do. Anyway, let me know what you think of this great album, Abraxas. I don't even know if I said the name. Hey, it's a great album. You know it already. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.